Hello everybody, good evening and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news as Sir Jim Ratcliffe faces a big bid issue for Manchester United that could seriously impact our Champions League attendance or participation next season. Also a bit of an update on what's happening with the sale of Manchester United. A few rumours floating around, so we thought we'd clarify that. As well as that, Jude Bellingham is back in the race for Manchester United. We'll talk about that. Also, an amazing article from The Athletic this morning that we need to, revisit, but we've not visited on as a community yet, around Marcus Rashford and what a potentially huge wage Manchester United might have to pay to keep him at United. Is that reasonable in the future for Manchester United to be paying those ridiculous wages again? Also, we'll touch a little bit on Harry Kane. I know I've done a short video earlier, but there's lots to get into on the show tonight. Apologies for being a little bit late. I'm probably about 5 minutes later than I wanted to be because basically I was just in shock that Scott McTominay had scored again for Scotland against Spain. But it's funny, isn't it? Because people start going, oh, McTominay's a decent player. Played absolutely crap for United for 7 months, but scores a couple of goals in international football for Scotland and he's decent. I mean, do it in a United shirt. But we have got a sponsorship with Boohoo Man today. As you can see next to me, we're sponsored by Boohoo Man, which means there's going to be a bit of a quiz for you in a minute. You should get it quite easily. But before we do that, Boohoo Man is all about looking good and feeling great. And with springtime upon us, it's the perfect time to update your wardrobe with some fresh fashion or activewear. As you can see, I'm wearing my Boohoo Man hoodie, which I love to wear at the end of the day to just chill out in. You can get yours. But as always, Boohoo Man sponsors our show. It's time for a bit of United-related trivia. And this week, we're testing your knowledge by asking you to guess the ex-United player Boohoo Man is referring to based on the clues provided. So let's dive in. A bit of a hint there. I was born on April the 3rd, 1983. I started my youth football career with Racing Club Warwick. I made the move to Manchester United from Stoke in 2005. During my time at United, I won the League Cup twice. I've also recently come out of retirement to play for Wrexham. Who am I? Of course, I think most of you are going to know this in the chat. I'd be stunned if you didn't. He was on the tour with us on Thursday night in Manchester. Of course, it's friend of the channel, Ben Foster. As always, a big thank you to Boohoo Man for providing United Stand viewers with a bit of a quiz, but also with that special discount. They've always got something for you. Scan the QR code next to me or go through the link in the description. Use the code Goldbridge and you could get an additional 10%. In fact, you can get an additional. There's no could about it. You will get an additional 10% off at Boohoo Man with the code Goldbridge. This discount excludes certain sale items though. Big thank you to Boohoo Man for supporting today's show. And now we can move on with the show, but well done to you all for getting that. Fozzie, Ben Foster, he's back. The cycling goalkeeper, the GoPro goalkeeper. He's back in goal for Wrexham. There we go. It's not Harry Maguire. It's not Harry Maguire. Right, let's get into the show. We're going to start off with this story about Sir Jim Ratcliffe and his potential nightmare scenario where he could bid for Manchester United and land us into a situation no one wants us to be in, where Sir Jim Ratcliffe could buy Manchester United and Manchester United could fail to qualify for the Champions League even if we were in the top four. How does that work, Mark? Well, this is coming out from ESPN. And correct me if I'm right, that the club... What's the club? Nice. He owns Nice, doesn't he? I mean, it's highly unlikely that this would happen, but this has been reported by ESPN and Mark Ogden. And what they're saying is this, that Manchester United... Sir Jim Ratcliffe, if he buys United and Nice were to finish in the Champions League qualifications box, the club finishing higher would take the place in the competition because you can't have two clubs owned by the same owners in the same tournament. Meaning that United would miss out if they finished fourth and Nice finished in League's top three. This is also potentially an issue for Sheikh Jassim bin Hamad Al Thani, who is leading the Qatari bid to buy United, because he may also be forced to prove he has no influence in the running of PSG. So effectively, it's basically saying, at last, that we do need to get this sort of clarity on what's going on, because I actually think that it's a bit unfair, some of the stuff that's been levelled against the Qatari bid, when actually it's just as relevant for the Sir Jim bid. And people might say, well, it's xenophobia, it's bias, whatever, whatever it is. But we've certainly heard plenty about how the PSG ownership could be linked to the Man United ownership, and that's immoral, and you can't have that. But at the end of the day, Nice is owned by Sir Jim and Ineos. It is. the PSG ownership from Qatar is basically saying that Al Thani is separate to us. Now, I don't necessarily believe that, but technically they are saying that it is. There is nothing from the Sajim side that's saying that we're going to sell Nice, that we're separate to Nice. Sajim owns Nice and he wants to buy Manchester United. So I think this ESPN article is interesting because at last we get a little bit of an expose on the situation that is more relevant to Nice than it is to PSG. Now, I'll be the first one to tell you that I personally believe that the PSG ownership, Qatar, is going to have something to do with Manchester United, whether it's through the back door or not. But the cold, harsh truth is that Sir Jim Ratcliffe does own Nice. And hello, PSG are a French league club, and so are Nice. Just because PSG are doing better, it's still the same. Somebody wants to buy Manchester United who owns a French club. The reality is, though, Thani is saying he's nothing to do with PSG. Hello, Mark. Before the show starts, is it wrong to call Man United Man U? I'd really like to know, says Victor. Man U is an offensive term to Manchester United fans, but, some people do say it without being educated on why it is. So I wouldn't say it's a crime to do it. I think once you've been told not to do it, you shouldn't be doing it. But look, somebody just said ESPN are clutching. They are clutching, or are they clutching? I think I would almost agree. Look, my opinion comes in after we've given you the headline, of course. I look at the French league table at the moment and I see Nice have got 44 points and they're in 7th place. To catch Marseille or Lens, they would need... Well, Lens are on 57 points and Marseille are on 59 points. So Nice would need to... and Nice have only won 1 of their last 5. So Nice would need to make a 13-point gap up on Lens to finish 3rd. Man United are currently 3rd in the Premier League anyway. So it's not going to happen. This is not going to happen. This scenario is, I agree, clutching in a sense that... we're not going to see Nice finish above Man United in relation to league position. And I don't even know the technicalities of this anyway, but it's been put out there by ESPN that if Nice finished 2nd in the French league and Man United finished 3rd in the Champions League, then Nice would go into the Champions League and Manchester United wouldn't, because both clubs are owned by Sir Jim and the club finishing higher goes into the Champions League. But I don't know, because I'm pretty sure I've seen Salzburg and Leipzig both in the Champions League anyway. So I think it's a bit of a storm in a teacup, and there may well be a technicality that this is true. I'm certainly not going to lose any sleep over it, but this is why we do need a little bit of clarity. And the reason, I'll be completely honest, the only reason I have an interest in this story is because we've heard it so many times with the Al Thani bid about his connections with PSG. Numerous media outlets in the UK have made a big deal about it over the last 2 months. You can't buy Man United when Qatar people own PSG. Well, technically, that's like saying that, I'm trying to think. Well, I'm trying to think of a scenario because it's so stupid. An English person can't buy a hotel in Spain because another English person owns it. And I know that's not quite the same, but on paper, Al Thani is not connected to PSG. So we've had a lot of that for 2 months. I think it's actually quite fair reporting to start to put a bit of focus on Sir Jim, that he owns Nice. Like, he does own Nice, and he's trying to buy Manchester United. Mark, PSG chairman is on the UEFA board. I think that rule will go soon if Qatar get what they want. 2 bites at the cherry they've tried to get with PSG and failed, says Niket. Yeah, so I don't think it's going to be a huge issue, to be honest with you. But what I do think is that, a bit of fair reporting is not a bad thing. Now, Richard Briscoe's trying to draw our attention to the Rain Group have chosen Sheikh Jassim bid as the preferred bidder. There's been a lot of this tonight. There's a lot to get into tonight. Get your comments in. Crafty, thank you very much for your super chat. This has been reported a lot over the last few hours, that the Rain Group are going to go with the preferred bidder. Now, we heard about this a couple of weeks ago, that after the second bids, one bidder would be chosen as the preferred bidder to work with the club over the next few weeks to agree a deal. So everyone else would disappear. And if this was true, then this would mean that Al Thani and Qatar have been chosen as the preferred bidder to work with United towards a final deal. There has been reports about it in the last few hours. What I can tell you is that none of it is coming from anybody with any credibility, and there's a lot of guesswork going on. I personally will give you my opinion as to why that is, because people, for some reason, still want to try and grow a reputation on Twitter with, without revealing who they really are. We see it with ITKs. I've always said this. In the summer, when somebody says, deal done, Frankie de Jong, and nobody knows who they are, they're just an account that's made up. Why would you ever do that when Fabrizio Romano does that with his real name and real identity? These people are just chances. They're jokers. They're just predicting. And these people who are saying that Al-Thani has been chosen as the preferred bidder, they're guessing. And the reason they're guessing is because factually 2 or 3 weeks ago, it was put out there by people close to the deal and journalists that after the second bids, they would look to move forward with a preferred bidder. So what these jokers have done is they've basically gone, oh, remember a couple of weeks ago when they said there's going to be a final bidder? I'm going to guess it's Al-Thani and we're going to get a final bid stage. And then if it does happen, I look like I'm really in the boardroom. But if it doesn't happen, I can just go and say, they were going to do that, but they've changed their mind at the last minute. They're going to have another round of bids. So I wouldn't rule out that we could get to a final bidder stage in the next few days. But as of tonight, as of this minute, there is no decision made on what the next stage is going to be. And it could well be that we have a final bidder that the club work with to do a sale, like Al-Thani or Sir Jim. Or it could be that they decide to have a third bid stage, which is what we've just been with the second bid. What I would say is that the delay in the bids last week that were meant to go in on Wednesday at 9 o'clock, that's not delayed the process in the sense that by the end of this week, there is expected to be an announcement on what the next stage will be. Paul Ferraren, thank you very much for your super chat. And with tomorrow being a week since the soft deadline, would be interesting if big news came out while you was on stage tomorrow, says Glenny Boy. Well, I hope so. If you're going to be at the show tomorrow, looking forward to seeing you. I think we've just about sold it out now. But if you want to check it and you want to be in London tomorrow, check out I don't think it's in the link of this video description, but it was on the one this morning. Paul says, I've bought tickets for tomorrow this evening. I'm very excited. Is it assigned seating? Because I actually forgot to check, says Paul. I'm not 100% Paul. It was in Dublin. It wasn't in Manchester. And I'm not 100% sure in London. But the London venue's on 3 tiers anyway. So it's a really nice venue, the London one. But I would say get there early. I don't know if it's spoken about, but has anyone heard Tottenham say a word about Kane, or is this English media pushing the narrative? I personally don't want him. He continually disappears in the big games, so Stuart Walker. Kane coming to United is giving me Van Persie vibes, says Will. Well, there's a lot to talk about tonight. I've given you the update on the sale. Maybe we'll come back to that, but let's move on. I sense people want to move on. I've done a video on Harry Kane earlier, which basically summarises what the situation is, so I don't propose to repeat that because you can watch that, or you probably already have watched that. One thing I would add to this, I'll be there, mate. Can't wait, says Tumbleweed. I'm really excited. A few of you are going to be there tomorrow night, which is great, which I suppose makes sense. Look, check it out. There might be tickets still. Just type in United Stand Tour tickets and get yourself down there tomorrow. It's going to be a good show. Looking forward to it. But I've got some very good lines. Got some very good stuff. I'm sure we'll get some clips out for you tomorrow as well if you're not going to be there. But the Harry Kane situation got me thinking. And look, a few people are talking about Robin Van Persie vibes. I suppose I get that. Van Persie left Arsenal because he wanted to win a title and he did it in his first year. Could history repeat itself with Harry Kane? Potentially it could. I actually also think that one thing that probably doesn't get mentioned much is we talk about the price, we talk about the age, we talk about wanting a younger striker, we talk about Kane never winning anything, we talk about the potential for his 30s to be defined by injury, we talk about the red flags, we talk about the positives, that he's a world-class striker. One thing we probably don't talk about is that he's English. And there is still a homegrown quota requirement within the Premier League. And United, actually, if you look at who United are looking to move on in the summer, or who you would move on, most of those players are homegrown talents. Harry Maguire's English, Scott McTominay, British, come through the youth setup. So that's 2 players straight away that you'd be looking to move on who are from that sort of homegrown thing. So look at last summer. Eriksen's not homegrown, Malacia's not homegrown, Martinez, Casemiro, Anthony, they're all foreign signings. So it might not be the most glamorous reason, but, and I'm not too hot on the homegrown rule, but it might be that United, like Man City, we wonder why Man City spent £100 million on Jack Grealish and £60 million on Calvin Phillips. Probably because they needed to bring a couple of homegrown players in, and they wanted to bring players in that they thought might be quite useful, so they had to pay a lot of money for them. maybe this summer Manchester United do need to bring in an English player. And if it's not going to be Harry Kane, who would you want to bring in as an English player? Like, personally, I wouldn't mind us going for Tomori from AC Milan. You know, I think he ticks a lot of boxes for what we need. Some people might go with the Declan Rice as the midfield option. But I think most of the players we look at, whether it's De Jong, whether it's Osimhen, whether it's, you know, a Ramos or a Vlahovic or a Timber or a Kim Min-jae, none of them are English players. So maybe that's something we need to start thinking about, that maybe Man United have a requirement to start looking at bringing in some British players because it's low. Hi Mark, I love the show channel. I've been bought tickets tomorrow by my wife to be for my birthday. She watches also. Please shout out, says Emmanuel. There we go. Lovely stuff, pal. And hi Mark, would you take Kane and Ferguson as an understudy instead of just Osimhen, says Thomas? Well, I would do. I'd love that. I'd be very, very, very happy with that happening, to be honest. Yeah, I'd be all over that. But I don't know whether it'll happen. I don't think Brighton will let Ferguson go in the summer. Hi Mark, looking forward to tomorrow night. What time are you on stage? I need to get out of work sharpest. So it's a 7:45 kickoff tomorrow. The last few have been 8 o'clock, but we're going with the traditional 7:45. So we should be all done by about 10 to 10, that sort of time. So yeah, looking forward to it, Kyle. ESPN could be concerning. PSG win league every year, says Ray Cowley. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about the PSG ownership of having any impact on Al Thani. I think PSG and Qatar have been very clever and very meticulous in distancing any identifiable line between the two. The only thing I would always say, and I've said this a few times, is two things that concern me about the Qatar bid from a footballing point of view. One, I don't like the way Qatar have owned PSG. I think it's the way not to run a football club. I think it's more akin to the Galactico era of Real Madrid, which wasn't successful. And two, I don't want this to bite us on the arse in a decade. Look at what's happening with Abu Dhabi and Man City. They're looking at, cheating or reports of financial irregularities between 2009 and 2018. It's 2023. I don't want United in 10 years' time to be being investigated because the purchase of United, there was links with PSG. So we've got to be careful about those sort of things. Ben Jones, but I presume there's enough people involved to make sure that doesn't happen. Thank you very much for your super chat, Ben. So look, Harry Kane, interesting, but we'll have to see how it develops. And I think we're all right to observe what Spurs' opinion on it is, because I think Spurs are not an easy club to deal with. But I've covered all that on my video earlier. It's only 10 minutes. Check it out. Shaunik says, Mark, in my Football Manager save, I've had to get Kane on a premium because the homegrown quota had to be 8 and I had let Maguire go. I don't want this to happen in real life. Shaunik, you have made a very, very good point, and I'm sure, as I said on the stage last week, one of my favourite things about the United stand is the ability to look educated at times when I don't really know what's going on, and I glance at the chat and somebody does, and I'll take it as my own. I don't do that. I shout you out. But look, I think that when you look at it, I think it's an intelligent observation that there may well be some sort of homegrown... Well, there is a homegrown rule with the Premier League. And if anyone wants to whack it in the chat and let us know what it is, because I don't fancy Googling at this time of night. But the only thing I like to Google at this time at night is 2 syllables. But, I'm sure there is a homegrown quota. Let me just have a look at it for the Prem. So each Premier League club submits a squad list after each transfer window closes. It can contain no more than 17 players who do not fulfil homegrown criteria. The remainder of the squad, up to a total of 25 players, must be homegrown. So that means you've got to have 8. You've got to have 8 in a 25-man squad then, haven't you? I mean, look, there's a show in itself there. We're sort of trying to do it off the hop here, but I do think it's worth considering, because you have to look at it like that and say, are we diminishing our homegrown talent? And is that why we might look at a Harry Kane? I don't know. And the FA might want to bump it up. Rashford, Garnacho, Sancho, Shaw, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Mainu, Iqbal. I don't know how it works. How does City have 8, says Dian? Exactly. I don't know how it works. It's for Europe as well. Academy players do count, says Michael. Look, all I'm saying is it might not be relevant to Harry Kane, but we bought 5 foreign players last summer. If we buy every player I want's foreign, I'll be honest. It's not because foreign. It's not because they're foreign. I haven't got a foreign fetish. I do think you can buy better abroad in relation to ability and price. But, you know, if there are English players... I mean, is there any English player that you would want at Manchester United at the moment? I think that's the problem. I find the English national team, although they do grind out results, I don't find them ridiculously inspiring. I mean, I do like Saka. We're never going to get him. Foden, I think, is a good player. We'd never go anywhere near him. Bellingham, obviously, I would like. Mason Mount was interesting, but I wouldn't go near him anymore. Tomori I've mentioned, like Carl's just mentioned there. So Bellingham, Tomori would be interesting. And then the rest of them I think are just not gettable. And I suppose that's the problem. Everything is out of our control, Mark, says Matt. What, in a football sense or in real life? English players are mostly overhyped. It's facts, as Sean. And I think, to be honest, that's sort of what we're talking about. Harry Kane. Maybe we're going to go for Harry Kane because of the homegrown quota. Because if you look at United over the next 5-6 years, we're going to have to start bringing some good quality English players in. And who are they going to be? Because if you rely on youth players, statistically, we don't bring that many youth players through. We do, but we don't. You know, we don't bring 3 or 4 through every year. So there has to be some future. I mean, maybe we keep Harry Maguire because he's English. Have you ever thought about that? I'm not convinced Maguire goes in the summer. Maybe we keep him because he's English. I'd certainly be keeping Wan-Bissaka for that reason. I wouldn't be getting rid of Wan-Bissaka because I think if this homegrown thing is going to be an issue, and as I said, we bought 5 foreign players last year. Every player I want this summer is foreign. You know, I want a foreign striker. I've already said Osman. I want De Jong or a Kane or you know, I mean Bellingham's not. Bellingham would fit the bill. And then as a centre back, there's no English centre back I want other than Tomori that we've not been linked to. So I think this Kane thing could make sense as a homegrown thing as well. I don't want to get to Kane, says Jackie Boy, because he only has a few years left in him at the top level. I would prefer someone with room to improve and be great for around 10 years at most. That makes sense, says Jackie. I mean, look, I don't disagree with that, but maybe this homegrown thing might become a bit of an issue for Manchester United. I mean, I think we'd have to probably research it a little bit better and in more detail, but it might be why we do it. You know, even people like Brandon Williams might be worth just keeping. It's amazing, isn't it? Scott McTominay would be classed as homegrown. At the end of the day, United might end up keeping players that aren't good enough because of their passport. And not because of media bias, but because of a rule in the Premier League which dictates that we have to do that. Evening Mark, says Mr. Tony, I think Maguire will stay because of this. I'm not convinced Harry Maguire's... I mean, we're not meant to be talking about Harry Maguire, but I'm not convinced Harry Maguire's going to go in the summer. I think everyone assumes he will do. I don't think we'll be that lucky. I don't think he wants to go. Man United probably won't be able to offload him, and also he's a homegrown player, so I'm not convinced he'll go. I really, really don't. Phil Jones will go, English passport or not. He's got to go. I mean, I don't think he's trained in a year. Which brings us nicely on to the next thing I wanted to talk about, Marcus Rashford. Did you see this story this afternoon or this morning from The Athletic? Which is weird because, you know, The Athletic can be pretty on the money. They certainly take your money, don't they, on their subscription model. But they were saying basically that PSG had spoken to Rashford's people last year and there was talk of a £400,000 a week offer, which obviously opens up the door to 2 things, 2 questions. 1, what do Man United do in response to that? But 2, Jude Bellingham is a homegrown talent. Of course he is. He's bloody English. Surely Jude Bellingham's classed as homegrown. He's English. He played at bloody Birmingham. He's got to be classed as homegrown. Anyway, 1, what do Man United do when somebody has put 400 grand on the table? And 2, what the bloody hell were PSG doing offering 400 grand a week last summer when he'd had a crap season? If it was now, I'd still go, wow. But the fact that PSG, and look, this was in The Athletic, I read it this morning, 400 grand a week last summer when he hadn't even had a good season. That's a hell of a lot of money, isn't it? And it makes it quite interesting. People are going nuts over McTominay as a striker, says Slow Sports News. Mate, can I just say, I cannot stand international football. And this is probably a prime example of why. McTominay ain't good enough for Man United. You know, he's a hide-and-seek champion in a Man United shirt. He's not good enough. He goes and plays up front or something for Scotland, scores some goals, and people think he's the next bloody Alan Shearer. I hate international football. Can't wait for this international break to be over and we can get back to real life. He used to be a striker, though. Yes, he did, Andre. Would you try and pick up Thuram on a free in the summer just to add some numbers? You could do, Rory. You could do. You know, I don't think we need to be so... And I'm going to talk about that Rashford thing. I don't think we need to be so arrogant or elitist around strikers. Ricky was saying last week that we need 2 strikers. I've said it for a while that we didn't replace Cavani and we haven't really replaced Ronaldo, and Martial's injury prone, so you could make an argument for 3. So I definitely think we need 2. But I think you're right. If you buy a Harry Kane, then you should bring another striker in, and it doesn't need to be someone that's good. It can be a developmental striker. It can be a bench striker. I mean, you could technically keep Weghorst, but we do need to have 2 strikers. Hi Mark, bids for Washington FB team going in at 6 billion. Do you think the Glazers, also NFL owners, will now settle for anything less than that? Says JM. Interesting. Hi Mark, on topic, I hope we get Osman over Kane just for the age differences. Off topic, will you ever bring your tour to the South Coast? Says Sean. I'll try to, Sean. I'm trying to think of where we could go, South Coast. Jason says, Qatar offers Rashford 400k a week during a bad season. What type of crazy wages can we expect to offer players when they own United, says Jason. Well, I hadn't really connected that, actually, Jason. You made a great point. Obviously, Qatar own PSG. If they did offer Rashford 400k a week last summer when he'd had a bad season, it is a bit worrying. But I've been very clear about that. Just because we get new owners, they will automatically be better than the Glazers, but it doesn't mean they'll be good owners. If we got bought by Al-Thani and he followed the PSG model, I'd be vocally very upset, because money don't buy your leagues if you don't use it properly. And what I mean by that is Man City have used money and they've won league titles, but they still haven't won a Champions League. PSG have won league titles, but they still haven't won a Champions League. You've got to build a team. And to build a team, you've got to let a manager build a team. You don't build a team by going Messi, Neymar, Mbappe will give you loads of money and loads of power. They're an imbalanced front three. They don't work as a front three and they earn ridiculous money and they've got too much power. That's not how to build a club. So I agree. I don't want owners that are just going to pay stupid wages. I would like us to sort the wage bill out. But this presents another problem for Manchester United. Jay says, what about Tammy Abraham? Would United consider him? Good age profile and would improve under Ten Hag, says Jay. I don't think he's somebody United are looking at. But Michael says, hi Mark, currently to be classified as homegrown, one must be on an English team for at least 3 years before the age of 21. Football Manager knowledge, says Michael. So maybe Bellingham wouldn't be classed as homegrown. And Daniel says, do you think Donny... Well, no, he would have been at Birmingham for 3 years, wouldn't he? Because I suppose it depends from what age group, but he would have been there from the age of 12, I would imagine. And Daniel says, do you think Donny will be a starter when he comes back from Everton? We could use him a lot right now. It's 2023, Daniel. He's not on loan at Everton. Wake up. He's injured. He got injured in January and he's out for the season. He's not at Everton anymore, Daniel. Look, I don't know about him. I don't know what happens when he comes back, really. Mark, do you remember that rubbish 3 foreigner rule in Europe in the 90s? Cost us a few times. Oh, it was a horrible rule. Yeah, if you're not old enough, Glennie, boy and me are. Man United used to win the league. We used to win the league, and then in the Champions League, you couldn't play Peter Schmeichel in goal. We used to play, what's his name? That Walsh in goal. Was it Gary Walsh? He used to have to play in goal in the Champions League because you could only pick 3 foreigners and the rest had to be English. So, and Mark Hughes, being Welsh, was classed as a foreigner. So, basically, the way that would work now is that, I mean, look, this is a great, we'll come back to that Rashford story, but a little bit of a Jackanory story. How this 3 foreigner rule used to work was that if United were playing against Sevilla in the Europa League quarter-final, we'd have to pick a team of Heaton, Wan-Bissaka, Maguire Martinez, Shaw, and then we'd struggle in the midfield because McTominay would be classed as foreign, and Fred. Basically, you could only pick 3 non-English players. It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. People often say, why didn't we win the Champions League in the early 90s? Because we were fucking rubbish. We couldn't pick most of our players. Roy Keane was classed as foreign. Mark Hughes was classed as foreign. Obviously, Kanchelskis, Schmeichel, Ryan Giggs. It was very, very difficult. Very, very difficult. Explains Phil Jones's contracts as Kyle, and Harry Kane as the marquee player, and Ivan Ferguson as the development player. Both are homegrown as well. I think Ferguson would be classed as homegrown. I don't want to offend the Irish because he's not homegrown because he's part of the UK, because Ireland is the Republic of Ireland. But I imagine he would be classed as homegrown because he's been at Brighton for 3 years under the age of 21. Which can work for people like Martinelli at Arsenal. Your opinion on infrastructure for ownership? I feel Qatar will be much more aggressive, says Matt. And Rashford on 400k is justified given Saka's new wages and Sancho on 350. Hopefully his form continues after signing it. FIFA Crazy, thank you very much for bringing us back on track. This is a really good point. So the next thing I wanted to say is if PSG have offered Marcus Rashford 400k last summer, can you bring the show to Brighton, says John Knoll. We'll look at it, definitely. If Marcus Rashford was offered 400k a week last year by PSG, and he's got 1 year left on his contract now, what do Man United offer Marcus Rashford? And what does Marcus Rashford ask for? I personally think Man United should not be paying more than 300 grand a week to anybody anymore. And I personally think we should really kick back on giving many players more than 200k a week. I think if you are a Luke Shaw or a Fred or, you know, a Garnacho or a Dalot or a Martinez, you should not be on anything more than 200 grand a week. I think between 200 and 300k a week should be for a handful, maybe not even that, you know, star players. So for me, Marcus Rashford should not be getting any more than 300k. We're working on this deal with De Gea, which was too much. He's been on 350k a week. It's a ridiculous deal. We're bringing that down. I think United need to set a wage limit of 300k. But it makes it very difficult if Marcus Rashford says, well, PSG are going to give me 400k a week and I'm going to run my contract down. United cannot let a £100 million asset walk out the door. So I said this a few weeks ago, the power is with Marcus Rashford and his agent and how hard they want to push. Because if Marcus Rashford says, I'm not staying unless you give me 400 grand a week, I think United have to pay it. And then you're destroying your wage structure, because then when you go and try and sign, you know, a top player and they know Rashford's on 400k, they're going to go, I want 400k. It's not giving Marcus Rashford 400k a week that's the problem. It's the fact that everybody knows he's on that and they want it as a new signing, and it destroys your wage bill again. And the reason we don't want this to happen is that we're going to get it very soon where financial fair play says that you cannot have more than 70% of your revenue spent on wages and transfers. So big wages eats into what you can do financial fair play wise. 400k a week is what, 1.6 million a month, which works out at about 20 million pounds a year. Well, quick maths. If Marcus Rashford says 400 grand a week or I'm leaving in a year for nothing, and United know he's worth 100 million, it's a very quick business decision to say, we can't afford to let 100 million walk out the door, let's give him 400k a week. So I think it could be a problem for Manchester United. And Lucy says PSG didn't offer it anyway, so move on. Well, whether they did or they didn't, and it's not my report, whether they did or they didn't, it doesn't stop Marcus Rashford asking for 350 or 400k a week. Hopefully he's happy with 300k a week, because I don't really want United going above that, because we need to get that wage bill down. But it will be interesting, because on the one hand, you've got people saying Marcus Rashford won't leave, he wants to stay, and I believe that. But on the other hand, he's got 1 year left on his contract and he's got all the power. And on the other hand, with three hands, you've got United not able to work on a deal until they get new owners in. So look, it'd be very interesting. Hopefully, we can get him on a long-term contract on no more than 300k a week. Is he worth 350k a week? No. Is he worth 400k a week? No. Some people will think he is. Honestly, he's had one good season in the last 3. That, to me, is not 400k. And I don't believe people when they say he's doing it for a new contract. That's bollocks. 100% not. I like Rashford. He's not doing it for a new contract. But you've got to be a bit careful that if you did give him 350k a week, what if he went back to being like he was a couple of seasons ago? So I don't think he will, but look, you got to future protect the club. And I think we might need to negotiate this one. He deserves a pay increase. I think he's on about 250. I'd be going up to 300k, maybe, but nothing more. Tevin, thank you very much for the super chat. And Mark, when you go on summer tour, will you try to meet Ryan Reynolds at that friendly? Me thinks you should invite Ben Foster on the trip, says Rory C. Oh yeah, I'll try and meet him and tell him I don't like any of his films, and I've never watched Swimming Pool or whatever it is, Deadpool. I don't understand why Rashford would ask 400k. He's been here since he was a boy. Doesn't he love the club? Certainly he must realise how detrimental to the squad 400k a week would be. Joe. I like Rashford. I like Bruno. I like Varane. I like Casemiro. But you got to wake up and smell the Nescafe. The modern footballer is not some moral crusader thinking about Man United's wage bill. They know they've got agents, they've got money, they want money. It's did David De Gea think that when the club offered him 350k a week? He demanded it, he got it. So I don't think that the modern footballer has any concerns about financial fair play restrictions. It's about getting what they can while they can, isn't it? I don't begrudge any footballer for doing that, to be honest. And as Just Keevan says, you can't blame them. I was having this argument maybe here last night. I said, look, at the end of the day, it might be immoral how much money a footballer earns, and it is. But the reason they earn so much is because there's a lot of money in football. And where should the money go in football? Surely it should be going to the players. They're the people. They're the people we want to watch. The money carousel of football is quite interesting when you analyse it. We want to watch the footballers in the club that we love, and the sponsors want our eyes because we're watching the football. So Chevrolet or Sharp or whoever our sponsor is, they're not doing it just because they love Man United. They're doing it because they want you, millions of you, to associate the sponsor with the club that you love. It's marketing. So all this money swirling around really should go to the fans, or should go to the players, because they're the reason the money's there. But obviously it doesn't always work like that. If we get new owners, we should give Rashford a nice big signing on fee but a lower basic wage, says Glennie. And look, it was a very good point there. If we get new owners, if we get Alfani and they follow the PSG model, Marcus Rashford might end up on £500,000 a week with 10% of the club. I mean, look what happened with Mbappe. There was rumours he was going to be made director of football. So, as I say, whatever we get will be way better than the Glazers. But I don't want us to follow the PSG model. I really don't want that Galactico. It will destroy us. The manager must be in control. I worried when Rashford got linked with PSG because I knew his worth and quality. If you look at the prior season, Rashford was out contributing Mane, says Manchild. Yeah, but I don't think Rashford was very good last season. I'm a big fan of Rashford and Martial, but I'll call it out when they're not playing particularly well. And last season, I don't think Rashford was really at it. I mean, he was being benched, wasn't he, for bloody Elanga? But look, he's been amazing this season. Absolutely amazing this season. There's no doubt about that. What else did I want to talk about? I don't know where this came from. Is Rashford a future captain, says Kazim? I think he could be. I do think he could be. I still think Look, do I think Rashford could be a future captain of Manchester United? He's only 25. Of course he could. Do I think he should be captain now? No. I still see, like the Anfield game, and there's been, even the game against Fulham, there's games where Rashford disappears. That's fine. That's what a flair player does. I've seen it with, countless players down the years who are, elite players, but they can go really quiet in a game. Do you want to load them with the captain's armband? I think they're in their own space. They're in their own game. And sometimes you give them the leadership and they've got to focus on other things when actually they're in their own battle on the pitch. So I think Rashford at the moment, let him do whatever he's doing, because a year ago I was saying it might be time for him to move on. And a year later, he's in that zone. I'd keep him in that zone. I wouldn't start loading him up with the captaincy. But look, as he gets older and matures, maybe he will. I think if you want Marcus Rashford to be captain, he needs consistency first. He's got to do what he's done this season, next year, maybe the year after that, and then when he's 28, maybe give it him. But he's better off just focusing on what he's doing. How much do you reckon Osman would want a week if we could sign him, says Andy? I don't know what he's on at the moment, but he won't be on massive money. But look, Osman's not going to want any more than 250, 300k a week. I think Osman will wear Chelsea's shirt next year. I was having a chat with someone this morning. I tweeted it out this morning. I do get little bits about Chelsea that tend to be quite good. I want him in a Man United shirt, but I've got a feeling Osman will be in a Chelsea shirt next season. I think he's got Chelsea written all over it. And the fact that they're now making a move, Chelsea only really need that as well. They don't really need anything else. They need an out-and-out goal scorer. And I agree with Taylor. I think we'll get Kane and Osman will go to Chelsea, which, when you look at it like that, there's nothing wrong with signing Harry Kane. He's a world-class striker. But if we get Kane and Chelsea get Osman, I think Chelsea got the better deal. I really do. And that's the thing, isn't it? That's a great point, actually. You talk about the age, you talk about him being world-class, you talk about the homegrown quota, you talk about the price, you talk about potential red flags about him being in his 30s and getting injured. But you've also got to talk about, well, where does Osman go? Because if Osman's staying at Napoli and he's never available, then Harry Kane becomes more attractive. But if Osman's moving and he's going to go to Chelsea, well, I'm sorry, as good as Harry Kane is, why didn't we get Osman? Are we not trying to be the best? So I think that is an interesting one. And Nkunku is going to Chelsea, but I still think, has it stopped Chelsea buying loads of wingers? I've just got a feeling he'll go to Chelsea. And Nkunku is going there, but I have a feeling he'll go to Chelsea. Because I think they might play Nkunku in a more withdrawn position. And I think they're going to sell a few players, Chelsea. I think there's going to be a lot of players going out of Chelsea. Mason Mount's going to go. Ziyech's going to go. I wouldn't be surprised if they raised about 200 million. How are we playing 2 games in 2 days? Europa League, then the FA Cup, says Yannick. I think you're talking about the... we should get in Tor Andre Flo as a striker, says Aran. He was a decent player, you know. I don't know why. I was talking to Ryan about this the other day, actually. We play Sevilla in Spain on the Thursday, second leg. And then we've still got 3 o'clock on the Saturday against Brighton in the FA Cup, which is not happening. We're not playing on Thursday night and then Saturday afternoon. But for some reason, they've not sorted the kickoff times for the FA Cup semi-finals yet. We will be playing on Sunday afternoon, but for some reason they've still got it listed as 3 o'clock on a Saturday. Osman's coming to United. Think about it, mate. Lukaku is heading back to Chelsea as well, says Chance. NFL team Washington Commanders just received 2 bids worth $6 billion. This could add even more of a delay if the Glazers want a world record fee, says that dude. I mean, you're the second person to say that, and I know we've got a lot of people tuning in from America, and I do like American football, but why are the Washington Commanders worth $6 billion quid? Like, I know America's a big place, but I mean, NFL season is so short as well. I think they only play about 16 games, don't they? How does the NFL have more value than Man United, who have a worldwide reach and play 60 games a season? I don't get that. Osman to Chelsea, Lukaku to Napoli. He's back to Chelsea in the summer. Makes perfect sense, says Rory. Good point. And Rashford was ruined by Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, who overplayed him and ran him into the ground, says John. You could say the same about Martial as well, although I think Mourinho had a part to play in that. Oh, it's dollars. $6 billion US dollars. Record fee, Glazers need a world record, kick up the arse out of our club, says United Devil. $6 billion US, by the way, not pounds, says Need. Look, one thing I would say about American sport, I'm a big fan of it. I like the NFL because they only play once a week. I do like hockey, and I don't mind the baseball, but they play too regularly. Basketball, not baseball. But, I mean, baseball's just silly boys rounders, isn't it? If you know, you know. But one thing that they do really well there's two things they do really well in the NFL. First thing, they make money out of their clubs. Like, you can have subscription feeds. Every game is available. None of this nonsense. I mean, we've got more games that we can't watch in April and May. There's more games that are not on the TV here. It's bloody ridiculous. So you've got the way that they commercialise their game, which sounds cynical, but it's actually done in a way that benefits their fans. So I think that's a good thing. I personally think that every Manchester United fan, every Arsenal fan, every Chelsea fan, every Bournemouth fan should be able to pay a subscription to watch their football club play. I was having a conversation with someone in Dublin last week over a pint of Guinness. Or take me home, take me back there. I loved it. And I was saying, if Arsenal play Bournemouth, don't use United, right? If Arsenal are playing Bournemouth at 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon, Bournemouth's attendance is only 11,500. They will only give up a maximum of 1,500 tickets to the away fans, right? That means only 1,500 people, 1,500 Arsenal fans can legitimately watch Arsenal play in the UK. That's bloody stupid. How do we live in a world where only 1,500 Arsenal fans can legally watch Arsenal play at 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon when they're playing Bournemouth? It's backwards. It's not only dictatorship, archaic and ridiculous. It's absolutely thick. How can you have a situation when only 1,500 Arsenal fans can legally watch their team play in the UK? It's stupid. It's so stupid. And we've got no voice on this at all. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And we've been living with this for all my life. All my life. And yet you've got probably not millions, but thousands upon thousands of Arsenal fans who would happily pay 20 quid to legitimately have a decent viewing experience on their TV or their laptop. And those people are then forced onto illegal streams. It's stupid. They're not all off to watch Leyton Orient. They're not. They're all watching it in other ways. It's so stupid. Kane plus Ferguson is the way forward, and Kane can play in the Bruno role as a cover, says Remy. We're not going to get Ferguson. We're not going to get Ferguson. McTominay is better than Haaland, says Benson. And do you think franchising teams in the Prem would be a good idea? I think it would, says Mr. Tony. I don't think so. Scooby-Doo, you gotta do. I tell you why Scooby-Doo scored a couple of goals. It's no coincidence. Have some of that. Ooh, look at that. There we go, Scooby-Doo. He's on it. I think I was showing a bit of. Oh, I thought that was my T-shirt. You got a bit of Goldbridge there. You got a bit of an exclusive, but yeah, Scooby-Doo. I've got the old tartan pajamas on, but the NFL has a salary cap where players only get 50% of the team revenue, so teams are very profitable, says Eric. There you go. I mean, I'm not saying another thing I really do like about the American sports coverage is that they get a lot of their pundits are not ex-players. They're like journalists or people who've just, integrated themselves into the sport over many years, and they end up being on primetime TV talking about the sport because there's a lot of downtime in NFL. But, they're not all ex-players. Very good analysis as well. So I think NFL, there's things in NFL that football should do. Not a lot of things, but there are things they should do. Funny thing is, Mark, that people were starting to moan that all the games was on TV towards the end of the pandemic, says Glenny Boy. I'm not bothered about all the games. I don't want to watch bloody, Southampton play Crystal Palace. I'm not bothered about that being on. But Southampton and Crystal Palace fans should... Basically, what should happen is, and I think the Glazers wanted this, it's probably one of the one things I would agree with, Man United should have a subscription service where they earn the revenue of their own subscription service. So what would happen is Sky and everything else like that would still exist with their games that they've got, but then United fans can pay for all the other games. So if it's on Sky, Man United against Liverpool, that wouldn't be on the Man United subscription service, but every other game would be. And what you do with that revenue is a percentage of it has to be shared out, but a percentage of it goes to the club. Funny thing is, that's from Glenny Boy. Thank you very much. Do I like cricket? Says Vegan. No. Oh, well, I don't mind cricket. I don't mind cricket. It's funny, actually. I saw that. I don't know whether anyone's seen that footage of Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville facing 100 balls from Stuart Broad, who's an England fast bowler in cricket. So they basically had to face 100 balls from Stuart Broad in cricket, which I thought was really interesting. You know, all those balls going at Gary Neville, and he hasn't got two to face me in a debate about Man United. Not even a debate, a chat. Couldn't help it. When is the deadline for Glazers selling Manchester United? Says Mohammed. Look, you know this. Just go. You know, on a serious note, you know this Scott McTominay scoring a couple of goals from the number 8. This is good. This is good. I don't think he's good enough to play for Manchester United, and if you do, seek help. But what he does need to do is, when you're scoring goals for Scotland, Scooby-Doo, do you want to come back to Man United and sit on the bench? Do you want to be on the bench next season? He needs to go and play for Newcastle or Aston Villa or Everton or Brighton or something. This is good. The fact that McTominay is scoring goals in international football, which I don't like, will make him feel more ambitious and will also make other clubs look at him and go, there's a player there. So I think this is good for Manchester United, as long as we're going to move him on. I mean, if we're thinking about keeping him because he's a homegrown player, it's just the cycle will never end. But yeah, that would be good. Piers Morgan won't do a debate with me either, Raz. He's a bottle job as well. There's a new tweet about the Times group. Let me have a look. Just before we move on. So, Matt Lawton in the Times says that... Doesn't say anything. I can't see it. I'm just looking on his Twitter. I'm Ronnie Pickering. Oh, here we go. Some sources believe that the Elliott investment should be seen as the third horse in the race to buy United, especially as the offers from Ineos and Sheikh Jassim are still below the $6 billion desired by the Glazers. Estimates for an expansion of Old Trafford to 88,000 seats with a new south stand extending over the railway are in the region of 200 million. That's bollocks. I'm sorry, well, I'm not saying it's bollocks. I have. That is nowhere near what we've been told. We've never been told that. I mean, I'd love that to be true. 88,000 seats takes the capacity from 75 to 88, so roughly 13,000 seats for 200 million quid. But we've never been told it would be that easy to go from 75 to 88,000, 200 million, and just extend a stand. I'd love that to be the case, but I don't think it would be that cheap. I really don't. But look, maybe that's something we can look into more in the morning. That Elliott group are hanging around. You know, they're seen as public enemy number 2 behind the Glazers, but they are around there. I don't think... Look, Matthias says Everton have built a new stadium for 400 million. Old Trafford would not cost as much as Spurs because it's not in London. Look, maybe there's more truth in this, but look, we've always been told by many people that the cost of a new stadium or a renovation of Old Trafford, in fact, we were told that it would be as expensive to renovate and take twice as long. the story was that it would take around 10 years to renovate Old Trafford, whereas building a new stadium would take about 5. So there's misinformation out there. But sometimes when a story is new and fresh, it can be elaborated. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But look, that Elliott Group is still sniffing around. There's no doubt about it. An extension is not refurbishment. Yeah, but mate, I go to Old Trafford on the regular. Our studio's really basically right next to it and looks out upon it. Anybody who goes to Old Trafford regularly will tell you we don't need an extension, and refurbishment is not an option. It's a necessity. Like, if you've been to Old Trafford, you can't just build one stand and leave the rest. It is rusting. It does need renovation. You can't just build one. You can't just go, let's go from 75,000 to 88,000 and spend £200 million on one side of the ground. Everywhere else does need work. 100%. Right. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll be back in the morning at 8 o'clock. No, not 8 o'clock, at 10 o'clock. And obviously it's our last show tomorrow night in London. So if you're going to be there, great. Give us a shout. And if you want to be there, check it out. Just type United Stand tour tickets. I think they've all gone, but you might get lucky. And I really enjoyed the show tonight. I hope you have as well. So take care. Smash a like on the video and subscribe. And I'll speak to you all in a bit. And don't forget, we've been sponsored by Boohoo Man. I'm wearing one of their tops. Links in the video description. Get an extra 10% off with the code GOLDBRIDGE. I'll see you in a bit.